Hello, everyone. Today, it's a big one. It's a little bit longer. We've been off for a couple weeks, so we're going to do more of section 2 in the Key to Theosophy. And this is the difference between theosophy and spiritualism. Spiritualism was really big during the 19th century, the 1840s to about 1920. The table wrappers, hang on, like that, and the ectoplasm, which was, cheesecloth. Anyway, what is the difference between theosophy and spiritualism? Just making sure I'm camera ready. I've also got new lighting up here, so hopefully I won't strobe. Okay, let's get started. I wanted to also reiterate that I am reading the text to you. This is the Key to Theosophy, written down by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. It is written in question and answer form. And the answers, as they come through, you'll hear me read you them, but I highly suggest reading them for yourself. I've republished some of these ancient texts, made them available for free. I've also included links to the free PDFs online. Read these for yourself, because this is the only source of information. Theosophy is the only source of information I've found that when you go back and read what you read before, you find out brand new stuff. It's almost like it's magic. It's like a magic box of wisdom. So go back and revisit and re-listen. And if I can bumble through this is a long one, then re-listen. I'll do my best to edit out the bumbling. Here we go. Okay, in section 2, pages 27 through 35, the difference between theosophy and spiritualism. So there is a difference. Inquirer asks, but do you not believe in spiritualism? Theosophist, if by spiritualism you mean the explanation which the spiritualists give to some abnormal phenomena, then decidedly we do not. They maintain that these manifestations are all produced by the spirits of departed mortals, generally their relatives who return to earth, they say, to communicate with those they have loved or to whom they are attached. We deny this point blank. Again, we deny this point blank. We assert that the spirits of the dead cannot return to earth, save in rare and exceptional cases, of which I may speak later. Nor do they communicate with men except by entirely subjective means. That which does appear objectively is only the phantom of the ex-physical man. But in psychic, and so to say spiritual spiritualism, we do believe, most decidedly. Inquirer, do you reject the phenomena also? Theosophist, assuredly not, save for cases of conscious fraud. Inquirer, how do you account for them then? Theosophist, in many ways. The causes of such manifestations are by no means so simple as the spiritualists would like to believe. Foremost of all, the Deus ex machina, which means Deus, it comes from Latin and Greek, God from the machine. Deus, you've heard that, ex machine, also used to describe a plot twist, a divine intervention plot twist. Deus, it's D-E-U-S, X, E-X, M-A-C-H-I-N-A. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. Foremost of all, the Deus ex machina of the so-called materializations is usually the astral body or double of the medium or of someone present. This astral body is also the producer or operating force in the manifestations of slick writing, like the Davenport brothers, Davenport-like manifestations. They were 19th century magicians who claimed to have spiritual powers. Okay, Inquirer, you say usually, then what is it that produces the rest? Theosophist, well, that depends on the nature of the manifestations. Sometimes the astral remains, the kama-lokic shells. Now, kama-loka means kama, desire, from Sanskrit meaning desire. I know all of you, lots of you, have heard of the Kama Sutra, which is the desire instruction manual. Sutra meaning doctrine, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the Kama-loka. Kama-loka means desire, kama, desire, and loka as in location, place, the place of desire, which is described by HPB as the, to us, subjective and invisible, where the disembodied personalities, the astral forms, called kamarupa, remain, that they stay in this place until they fade out from it from complete exhaustion of the effects of the mental impulses that created them. So anyway, more on that later. I'll put links down below. Okay. So Theosophist answers that depends on the nature of the manifestations. Sometimes the astral remains, the kamalokic shells of the vanished personalities that were, at other times, elementals. Spirit is a word of manifold and wide significance. I really do not know what spiritualists mean by the term, but what we understand them to claim is that the physical phenomena are produced by the reincarnating ego, the spiritual and immortal individuality. And this hypothesis we entirely reject. The conscious individuality, disembodied, cannot materialize, nor can it return from its own mental, devashanic, well, some people might say devachan, devashan. It means gods, deva, gods, dwelling, heaven, if you will. I think of devashan when I read that, heaven, the place of the gods. They cannot return from its own mental devashanic sphere to the plane of terrestrial objectivity. Inquirer. But many of the communications received from the spirits show not only intelligence, but a knowledge of facts not known to the medium, and sometimes even not consciously present to the mind of the investigator or any of those who compose the audience. Theosophist answers. This does not necessarily prove that the intelligence and knowledge you speak of belong to spirits or emanate from disembodied souls. Somnambulists, like insomnia, somnambulists, meaning people that walk in their sleep, have been known to compose music and poetry and to solve mathematical problems while in a trance-like state without ever having learnt of music or mathematics. Others answered intelligently to questions put to them, and even in several cases spoke languages, such as Hebrew or Latin, of which they were entirely ignorant of when they were awake. All this in a state of profound sleep. Will you then maintain that this was caused by spirits? Inquirer. But how would you explain it? Theosophist. We assert that the divine spark in man, being one and identical in essence with the universal spirit, our spiritual self is practically omniscient, all-knowing. But that it cannot manifest its knowledge owing to the impediments of matter. Now, the more these impediments are removed, in other words, the more the physical body is paralyzed as to its own independent activity and consciousness, as in deep sleep or deep trance, or again, in illness, the more fully can the inner self manifest on this plane. As to the lower order of manifestations, such as physical phenomena and the platitudes, cliches, uncommon talk of the general spirit to explain even the most important of the teachings, we hold upon the subject would take up more space and time that can be allotted to it at the present. We have no desire to interfere with the beliefs of the spiritualists any more than we do any other belief. The onus probandi, the onus, responsibility, the burden of proof must fall on the believers in spirits. And at the present moment, while still convinced that the higher sort of manifestations occur through the disembodied souls, their leaders and the most learned and intelligent among the spiritualists are the first to confess that not all the phenomena are produced by spirits. Gradually, they will come to recognize the whole truth. But meanwhile, we have no right nor desire to proselytize, convert them to our views. The less so, as in the cases of purely psychic and spiritual manifestations, we believe in the intercommunication of the spirit of the living man with that of disembodied personalities. We say that in such cases that it is not the spirits of the dead who descend on earth, but the spirits of the living that ascend to the pure spiritual souls. In truth, there is neither ascending nor descending, but simply a change of state of condition for the medium. The body of the latter becoming paralyzed or entranced, the spiritual ego is free from its trammels, restrictions, and finds itself on the same plane of consciousness with the disembodied spirits. Hence, if there is any spiritual attraction between the two, they can communicate, as often occurs in dreams. The difference between a mediumistic and a non-sensitive nature is this. The liberated spirit of a medium has the opportunity and facility of influencing the passive organs of its entranced physical body to make them act, speak, and write at its will. The ego can make it repeat, echo-like in the human language, the thoughts and ideas of the disembodied entity, as well as its own. But the non-receptive or non-sensitive organism of one who is very positive cannot be so influenced. Hence, although there is hardly a human being whose ego does not hold free intercourse during the sleep of his body with those whom it loved and lost, yet on account of the positiveness and non-receptivity of its physical envelope and brain, no recollection or a very dim, dreamlike resemblance lingers in the memory of the person once awake. How are we doing on time? Oh my God, okay. Inquirer. This means that you reject the philosophy of spiritualism in toto. And toto means in totality, altogether. We should use that more often, in toto. Okay. Theosophist. If by philosophy you mean their crude theories, we do. But they have no philosophy, in truth. Their best, their most intellectual and earnest defenders say so. Their fundamental and unimpeachable truth, namely, that phenomena occur through mediums controlled by invisible forces and intelligences. No one except a blind materialist of the Huxley Big Toe School, materialism, meaning that nothing but matter matters. That's Thomas Henry Huxley, who was the grandfather of Aldous Huxley, who wrote The Doors of Perception, where the Doors, the band, got their name. Anyway, it has to do the Big Toe School. I'll put links down below. Look it up. The Big Toe Theory, biped, quadruped, what separates man from animal, who are we, consciousness, the whole thing. Anyway. Oh, sorry about that. No one except a blind materialist of the Huxley Big Toe School will or can deny with regard to their philosophy. However, let me read to you what the able editor of Light, than whom the spiritualists will find no one wiser or more devoted champion, says of them and their philosophy. This is what M.A. Oxon, one of the very few philosophical spiritualists, writes with respect to lack of their organization and blind bigotry. So I'm going to read you what M.A. Oxon has written. This is in the Key to Theosophy. This is separate from the answer. Here we go. It is worthwhile to look steadily at this point, for it is a vital moment. We have an experience and knowledge beside which all other knowledge is comparatively insignificant. The ordinary spiritualist waxes wroth, gets angry, shines anger. If anyone ventures to impugn, doubt, or dispute their assured knowledge of the future and his absolute certainty of the life to come, where other men have stretched forth feeble hands groping into the dark future, he walks boldly as one who has a chart and knows his way. Where other men have stopped short at a pious aspiration or have been content with a hereditary faith, it is his boast that he knows they only believe, and that out of his rich stores he can supplement the fading faiths built only upon hope. He is magnificent in his dealings with man's most cherished expectations. You hope, he seems to say, for that which I can demonstrate. You have accepted a traditional belief in what I can experimentally prove according to the strictest scientific method. The old beliefs are fading. Come out from them and be separate. They contain as much falsehood as truth. Only by building on a sure foundation of demonstrated fact can your superstructure be stable. All round you, old faiths are toppling. Avoid the crash and get you out. When it comes to deal with this magnificent person in a practical way, what is the result? Very curious and very disappointing. He is so sure of his ground that he takes no trouble to ascertain the interpretation which others put upon his facts. The wisdom of the ages has concerned itself with the explanation of what he rightly regards as proven, but he does not turn a passing glance on its researches. He does not even agree altogether with his brother spiritualist. It is the story over again of the old Scotch body, who together with her husband formed a kirk, which is a church. Forgive my accent coming up, I'm going to do my best. They had exclusive keys to heaven. Or rather, she had, for she was not certain about Jimmy. So anyway, that's supposed to be read in a little accent. She was not certain about Jimmy. About Jimmy. So the infinitely divided and subdivided and re-subdivided sects of spiritualists shake their heads and are not certain about each other or one another. Again, the collective experience of mankind is solid and unvarying on this point, that union is strength and disunion is a source of weakness and failure. Shoulder to shoulder, drilled and disciplined, a rabble becomes an army, each man a match for hundreds of untrained men that might be brought against it. Organization in every department of man's work means success, saving of time and labor, profit and development. Want of method, want of plan, haphazard work, fitful energy, undisciplined effort. These mean bungling failure. The voice of humanity attests the truth. Does the spiritualist accept the verdict and act on the conclusion? Verily, no. He refuses to organize. He is a law unto himself and a thorn in the side of his neighbors. And that was written in Light, June 22nd, 1889. Sorry, a little campy there. All right, Inquirer goes on to ask, I was told that the Theosophical Society was originally founded to crush spiritualism and belief in the survival of the individuality in man. Theosophist, you are misinformed. Our beliefs are all founded on that immortal individuality. But then, like so many others, you confuse personality with individuality. This part is very important. If you've lasted this long, good. Stick around to listen. Personality is not individuality. Your Western psychologists do not seem to have established any clear distinction between the two. Yet it is precisely that difference which gives the keynote to the understanding of Eastern philosophy, and which lies at the root of the divergence between the theosophical and spiritualistic teachings. And though it may draw upon us still more the hostility of some spiritualists, yet I must state here that Theosophy, which is the true and unalloyed, which means pure spiritualism, while the modern scheme of that same name is now practiced by the masses, is simply transcendental materialism. Inquirer asks, please explain your idea more clearly. Theosophist answers, what I mean is though our teachings insist upon the identity of spirit and matter, and though we say that spirit is potential matter, and matter simply crystallized spirit, like water, you have ice is solidified steam, it is. Yet since the original and eternal condition of all is not spirit, but meta-spirit, meta meaning beyond, above, so to speak, visible and solid matter simply being its periodical manifestation, we maintain that the term spirit can only be applied to the true individuality. Inquirer, but what is the distinction between this true individuality and the I or ego, of which we are all conscious? Theosophist, before I can answer you, we must argue upon what you mean by I or ego. We distinguish between the simple fact of self-consciousness, the feeling that I am I, and the complex thought that I am Mr. Smith or Mrs. Brown, believing as we do in a series of births of the same ego, for the same ego, or reincarnation. This distinction is the fundamental pivot of the whole idea. You see, Mr. Smith really means a long series of daily experiences strung together by his thread of memory and forming what Mr. Smith calls himself. But none of these experiences are really the I or ego, nor do they give Mr. Smith the feeling that he is himself, for he forgets the greater part of his daily experiences, and they produce the feeling of egoity or egoity in him only while they last. We Theosophists, therefore, distinguish between this bundle of experiences, which we call the false, because so finite and evanescent, meaning temporary or transitory, personality, because so finite and evanescent the personality, and that element in man to which the feeling of I am I is due. It is this I am I which we call the true individuality. Okay, it is this I am I which we call the true individuality. And we say this ego or individuality plays like an actor many parts on the stage of life. And down below in the text, there's more on individuality and personality. Let us call every new life on earth of the same ego a knight on the stage of a theater. One night the actor or ego appears as Macbeth, the next night Shylock, the third as Romeo, the fourth as Hamlet or King Lear, and so on until he has run through a whole cycle of incarnations. The ego begins his life pilgrimage as a sprite, an Ariel, or a Puck. He plays the part of a super, is a soldier, a servant, one of the chorus, and then rises to speaking parts. Plays leading roles, interspersed with insignificant parts, until he finally retires from the stage as Prospero, the magician. That's a really important paragraph. So, I hope I did it justice. Please read for yourself. Please. One more question from the Inquirer as we wrap up. The difference between theosophy and spirituality? Inquirer, I understand, you say then, that this true ego cannot return to earth after death. But surely, the actor is at liberty, if he has preserved the sense of his individuality, to return if he likes to the scene of his former actions. Theosophist answers, we say not, simply because such a return to earth would be incompatible with any state of unalloyed, which means pure bliss after death, as I am prepared to prove. We say that man suffers so much unmerited misery during his life, through the fault of others with whom he is associated, or because of his environment, that he is surely entitled to rest, perfect rest, and quiet, if not bliss, before taking up again the burden of life. However, we can discuss that in detail later. And that is the quote from HPB, the Theosophist, in the Key to Theosophy. Did you make it through the whole video? Good. Good. Good, good, good. I apologize. As a radio talent, I've gotten kind of lazy because I can edit, and reading without mistakes and bumbling is, well, I'm trying to strengthen those muscles back. The most important thing is that if you're able to make it to this channel and you find these teachings touch you, if you feel this absolute pounding, crushing, inescapable need to help humanity, if you see the suffering of all beings and you feel a call to action, what can you do? Well, you can help the effect of the cause, but the cause would be to study, share, and apply these ancient wisdoms, become them, and then they affect those around you. It isn't just theosophy either. These ancient truths have come through in Jewish mysticism. You'll find them in the Kabbalah. You will find them in the Alexandrian philosophers. You will find them. They're out there, and you can tell what's real and what's not. And if anybody says that they are the, I don't know, civilization upgrader, and that they're the only ones that have the truth, then that's not the case. Yeah, the most important thing is you are the answer. You are where this change takes place. It's not going to come from outside of you. If you have anybody in between you and you trying to access your own breath, you would choke. So think of it that way. Breath, inspirare, spirit, you breathing, no one's in between. Otherwise, you choke. So thanks for being with me so long today. I love you very much, and we'll be back for more soon.